Hey Max, well that looked like a pretty encouraging day out there. How did it feel in the car?
Yeah, it was not too bad. I think FP1 started quite nicely with just getting up to speed with things, but the car was not too bad. A bit like the last 2 weekends where there were no major problems. And then in FP2, a few things that we tried, some were good, so we just need to try and optimize that a bit more. But overall, in general, quite satisfied, but definitely need a bit more pace to fight up at the front tomorrow.
Is it particularly satisfying, given that obviously it's a circuit that you guys haven't been so strong at, that you were able to hit the ground running like you said so early, and then in the representative session it felt?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's definitely very positive. Still a few things that we want to do better, but it's not like we need to throw around the setup completely. So that's a good thing. But yeah, we'll see tomorrow. I mean, is it gonna be good enough to fight up front? I don't know. I always find FP2 is a bit difficult to say, with people running engine modes, top speed wise. I guess we'll see in qualifying.
In terms of if there's one key thing you really want to work on overnight, was there anything that stuck out, or is it the little details that you kind of want to work on?
Yeah, tiny details, front grip, rear grip, keeping the tires alive throughout the lap. Around here the tires overheat a lot, so all those things just need to be a little bit better, and then hopefully that will be, a bit more in the window, and then you can push also a bit harder.
Great stuff.
Max Verstappen made one of his harshest statements after practice in Singapore, and what he said not only reveals Red Bull's weaknesses, but could change the course of a season. Does the RB21 really have what it takes to fight McLaren and Ferrari here at Marina Bay? Before continuing, let me know your opinion in the comments. Do you think Verstappen can break his curse in Singapore? Stay until the end, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The start of free practice in Singapore 2025 revealed a reality that goes far beyond simple times on the leaderboard. Max Verstappen, despite arriving with the confidence of having achieved consecutive victories in Monza and Baku, found himself facing a radically different scenario in Marina Bay. The street circuit, known for being one of the most physically and mentally demanding on the entire calendar, became a test of fire from the outset for the RB21 and for the Dutch driver's ability to adapt. It wasn't just a matter of speed, but also of endurance, concentration, and technical balance on a track that has historically been elusive for Red Bull. Furthermore, the extreme weather conditions added a level of difficulty rarely seen before. For the first time in history, the FIA declared an official heat hazard warning due to the high temperatures and humidity that reached almost 90%. Inside the car, Verstappen and the other drivers faced a veritable rolling sauna with internal temperatures that could be more than 15 degrees higher than the outside temperature. This situation not only tested the drivers' physical condition, but also their mental fortitude, as competing in Singapore under these circumstances requires managing discomfort as an essential part of performance. What makes this situation even more complex is Verstappen's relationship with the Marina Bay track. Despite his dominance on other circuits, and being considered the most complete driver on the grid, he has never achieved victory here. He hasn't even taken pole position in 8 previous starts, and has only led a handful of laps in his entire career in Singapore. This unfinished business adds an extra psychological weight. It's not just another race on the calendar, but a personal challenge that the Dutchman wants to overcome to consolidate his legacy. At the same time, Red Bull faces the pressure of proving that its updates work on a high downforce circuit, precisely the type of track where they have historically struggled the most. The new front wing, exclusive to Verstappen this weekend, became the center of attention, as it represents the most ambitious undertaking of the season to try to correct the RB21's weaknesses. In the Formula One paddock, rumors never cease, and what happened after the first practice sessions in Singapore was no exception. As teams analyzed data and fine-tuned their setups, rumors began to circulate about the RB21's true capabilities and the extent of the upgrades Red Bull introduced exclusively for this weekend. Attention focused on the new front wing, which only Verstappen used, a piece that not only sought to improve aerodynamic efficiency but also represented a clear signal that the team was willing to invest heavily in its star driver. These decisions, far from going unnoticed, fueled speculation about a possible internal imbalance, as granting a key upgrade to just one driver can generate tensions within the team. At the same time, several specialized media outlets began to report Red Bull's growing concern about keeping Verstappen fully committed to the project. After an inconsistent start to the season, with McLaren showing surprising dominance at several circuits, rumors emerged suggesting the need to convince Max that the RB21 could still evolve to compete for the championship. Some paddock insiders even pointed out that the engineers were working under extraordinary pressure to prove they could still deliver a winning car, reinforcing the perception that this update was not only technical but also psychological. Marco, who is usually direct and even critical in his assessments, acknowledged that it had been the best Friday in a long time in Singapore, a phrase that reveals the magnitude of the team's historical difficulties at the circuit. That small glimmer of hope, however, doesn't hide the fact that they are still behind McLaren and that there is still a lot of work to be done if they want to fight for victory. Verstappen, for his part, was forceful and transparent in his assessment. Far from being satisfied with the improved times between FP1 and FP2, the Dutchman made it clear that the situation is far from ideal. "I'm quite satisfied, but we need more speed to compete at the front." This direct and unadorned statement sums up the four-time Formula One world champion's mentality. This wasn't a diplomatic comment to flatter the media, but an explicit demand of his own team. Verstappen's honesty reflects how his role within Red Bull has changed. He is no longer simply the driver who executes, but the true leader of the project, the one who sets the priorities and dares to say what others keep quiet. This leadership is also reflected in the way Verstappen addresses the RB21's technical issues. He doesn't just point out that the car needs more speed, but precisely details the areas for improvement: front grip, rear grip, and tire overheating management. In doing so, he demonstrates a deep understanding of his car's limitations and, at the same time, sends a clear message to the engineers. The solution isn't a radical change, but rather a constant refinement that should allow him to attack in the toughest conditions. This ability to translate his feedback into a development guide has made Verstappen the very center of Red Bull's technical evolution. If Red Bull fails to transform the signs of progress into concrete results in Singapore, the consequences could be far deeper than a simple weekend defeat. First, the primary objective of keeping the championship fight alive would be jeopardized. Every race that passes without Verstappen being able to challenge for victory reduces the mathematical options and, above all, fuels the feeling that the RB21 has reached a technical ceiling. This perception could be devastating in a season where McLaren has demonstrated consistency. Second, a result below expectations in Singapore could unleash internal tensions within the team itself. The decision to provide Verstappen with the latest and most significant updates to the car clearly reflects that Red Bull has prioritized its championship options around him. If even with this exclusive focus, results are not forthcoming, the pressure on the engineers and technical management will increase, as it would become clear that centralizing resources on a single driver is not enough. Even the relationship between Verstappen and the team could enter more delicate territory, especially if Max feels his effort and leadership aren't translating into a competitive car. Another important scenario relates to the psychological narrative of the championship. If Red Bull fails in Singapore, Verstappen would go from being the determined chaser to a driver trapped by the limitations of his car, which would affect his confidence and, at the same time, strengthen his rivals. Drivers like Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri could gain a moral advantage, understanding that they are no longer facing the unbeatable Verstappen, but rather an adversary dependent on external circumstances. This perception could change the way other teams approach race strategies, taking more risks against a weakened Red Bull. The immediate future of Red Bull and Max Verstappen after practice in Singapore is marked by uncertainty, but also by one very clear expectation: to see if the improvements introduced can truly alter the competitive landscape. Saturday's qualifying will be the first definitive test. There, we will know if the new front wing and cooling adjustments have been enough to close in on McLaren and Ferrari, or if, on the contrary, the gap remains the same and Red Bull's efforts are not enough to put them in contention for pole. For Verstappen, everything will depend on finding the balance between downforce and top speed that Marina Bay demands, a challenge that has historically been problematic for the team. In Sunday's race, tire management and the extremely hot conditions will play a decisive role. The Dutchman has already acknowledged that the tires tend to overheat excessively on this track, meaning that pit stop strategy can make the difference between fighting for the podium or being left behind in traffic. Physical endurance will also be a critical factor. Enduring nearly 2 hours of competition in an oven like the Marina Bay cockpit requires superior preparation, and Verstappen is confident in his ability to withstand those conditions. The big question is whether he will decide to use the cooling vest or not, a decision that, although seemingly minor, could be crucial on a circuit where every kilo counts. Beyond the weekend, what is expected is a series of strategic moves within Red Bull to maintain the momentum of the season. The team knows that McLaren has a consolidated technical advantage and that Ferrari continues to make constant improvements, so the coming weeks will be decisive in determining whether they can continue fighting for the championship or whether they must focus on securing partial victories on more favorable circuits. For Verstappen, the goal is not only to keep the title battle alive, but also to consolidate a clear message that even in adverse conditions, he is capable of leading and squeezing the most out of every detail of the car. What we saw in Singapore isn't just another weekend on the Formula One calendar, but a turning point in Red Bull's season and in Max Verstappen's career. The forcefulness of his statements after practice makes it clear that the Dutchman isn't willing to settle for a supporting role. His stark analysis of the RB21's shortcomings, coupled with his open demand for greater speed and consistency, shows a driver who has fully embraced his team's leadership, even above the diplomatic messages that usually mark these types of situations. In this context, the big question is whether Red Bull has the capacity to respond with actions that match the words of its champion. Singapore represents a definitive test because if here, at the circuit where they have historically had the most difficulties, they manage to make a leap in quality, the fight for the title will take on new life. Now it's your turn. Do you think Red Bull will be able to restore Verstappen's lost confidence and help him win at the Marina Bay circuit? Leave me your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.